This is the most overlooked income play on the internet. Yo, what is going on, premium chasers? I hope you are having a God blessed day. Every single person that comments down below today is going to get my Sunday option sellers template. This is how you can plan out your week for success. If you want that, just drop a comment down below and I will personally reply to you. And while you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe button. Today, guys, I'm going to be sharing with you guys a strategy I wish I learned literally as soon as I turned 18 years old, because most people out there tell you, hey, start a business, start affiliate marketing, start this XYZ, right? In order to make your money work for you, right? As everybody says. Well, let's be real. Starting a business, doing all those things are extremely, extremely difficult tasks. You're probably already somebody that has a successful career. You're at a successful business. You don't have time to necessarily go start something new. Well, I want to show you guys a strategy today that allows you to actually collect something called premium, right, on stocks that you already own, right? So let's kind of go over the shoulders to show you guys how this works. And trust me, this isn't day trading. This isn't being a Picasso of the candlesticks. This is a very methodical approach to, one, purchasing stocks at prices you choose and get paid a premium for saying maybe, and then selling those stocks right back at a higher price, right? And collecting an additional premium just for saying maybe. I know it kind of sounds complicated, but we're going to break this down for you guys, all right? So let's just assume you are somebody that owns 100 shares of Apple. Okay, you own 100 shares of Apple, and you're like, okay, these shares, they just sitting in my account. Man, I'm owning Apple for the past year, fam, right? And I made $7, bro. Like, what is it? $6, right? Last year I bought this 100 shares for $19,400, and today my account's only worth $19,700. Man, what is this? Everybody told me to invest in the stock market. I'm gonna be rich. I'm gonna be able to retire, but I'm only making $300 a year, fam. Yeah. This is exactly the issue with buying and holding individual stocks. I'm somebody that's a big proponent of buying and holding Vanguard funds and self-cleansing ETFs and stuff. Fantastic. But buying and holding individual stocks, that's the first thing we need to get out of the way. Buying and holding individual stocks is a losing game. Don't come at me telling me, oh, what about Amazon? What about this? What about, listen, fantastic. But to be able to hit on those winners, you would need to spread your risk across like hundreds of companies, right? And like, listen, I know I'm not smart enough to pick out early startups like that, all right? So, but with that said, right, all along this way, there's something called option selling. I know, don't click away from this video because you hear options and you're scared, you're running scared. Don't, okay? I'm going to show you guys a way of selling options like that you probably haven't seen before, because everybody talks about more riskier stuff, right? I try to keep things like, obviously everything has risk, but at least something that's more sustainable, at least for me long term, okay? And I don't have to be sitting in front of charts all day, okay? So right now, trading at 197, and you know what? I'm like, I've been sitting on these 100 shares for a year. I made $300. $300, right? So let's go take a look on our options chain. So first thing I'm going to go do is I'm going to go to the options chain. Now, we are not options buyers. That's probably what you've done before in the past and had terrible experiences. Give me an amen in the comments if you've lost money buying options. I cannot be the only one. I literally cannot. But what we're going to do is click sell a call, right? And then I like to put my expiration date at 31 days, right? What I'm saying here is I'm willing to sell my 100 shares of Apple, right, for a price that I choose. So let's just assume you bought your original shares for around $190. I'll give you $190. You bought your original shares at $190, okay? And you want to put them to work on a monthly basis. So let's just assume, right, in 31 days, if Apple hits, let's say, $215, would you be cool selling your 100 shares? If you say yes, okay, perfect. If you say no, maybe is 220, is 225, whatever that is for you. That's where you have to figure out this. This is obviously for educational content only, for you to go learn how to make your own financial decisions, right? So let's just assume, if it hits 215, I'm totally cool selling my shares that I bought at 190, okay? Now for that, right, you would be given upfront premium. This premium would be immediately deposited into your account. Your 100 shares would be collateralized and locked up for 31 days. I like to toss everything into my covered call calculator to keep everything very, very simple and easy for me to understand. Everything is free here. All the templates, all the calculators, links are in our Facebook group, which you can find in the description. So we're collecting $169 in premium from the options buyer. Our strike of the option, the price that we're saying we're willing to sell our 100 shares, we're selecting 215. All right, so we'll put 215 right there. We said our average purchase price for our 100 shares is $190, right? We could see our premium return here is at 0.89, right, which is basically our premium divided by our purchase price times 100. Every options contract is 100 shares. So it gives us a decent premium return, nothing crazy. If we end up selling our shares in a month, we collect $2,500, right, for a total profit of $2,600. That's the profit plus the premium. Okay, but let's kind of like go full circle here on everything that can happen, right? If 31 days rolls around right here, right, and Apple just let's say sideways around 198. Well, your shares will no longer be locked up as collateral, or they'll be returned back to you to then run the play again the following month. Fantastic, right? The second thing that can happen, and this is the biggest risk of selling options, is let's say Apple shoots up to 220, 250, right? You're selling your 100 shares at 215 and locking in that profit. For me personally, I like to sell shares, right? My buy and hold, like I have the Vanguard stuff, that's the stuff I don't mess with. But for me, when I sell options, my simple goal here is to sell my shares, lock up premium, and not just worry about paper gains. My goal is to actually make money with this and like move on to the other opportunities, because there's always opportunities in the stock market. Now, for you, you might be looking at this and be like, Pete, you know what? I kind of want to be a little bit more aggressive. If it hits 210, I'm doing it, right? So the closer you get to the market value, the more premium you collect, okay? So for example, like let's say you're like, you know what? I like this 210. Well, for that, you're collecting actually a lot more premium. You're collecting $282 in premium, right? So if we put 282, that's $100 more. You're collecting 282, giving you about a 1.5% return on your collateral, on your shares, right? Plus, you have a decent profit as well. So you're getting a kind of a kind of balance. Whoops, sorry, I have to flip that to 210. So you're losing a little bit of the profit on the shares, but you're collecting a little bit more premium up front. Now, the number that you really want to pay attention to when you are selling options and deciding which contract to do, right, is number one, the ultimate question is, like, what's your number? Like let's say with Apple, you're like, I'm just trying to, I just want to sell it at a decent profit. I don't necessarily need to hold this thing. And if you're like that, you're like, okay, maybe I'll look at the 2.5s, 2.10s. But if you're like genuinely like, I really love my shares, so I don't want to let them go unless it really, really makes sense for me. And that's where you'd go towards the more higher price stuff. But an easy rule of thumb to look at is open up your contract and look at the delta. This delta basically for us option sellers really simply gives us a probability of assignment. So this is a 0.27, let's just call it 0.3. There's a 30% chance that Apple will hit 210 and you will have to sell your shares at 210, but there's a 70% chance that it stays below 210 and your shares will not be sold, okay? So those are the kind of the probabilities. Now, all these Greeks and technical analysis, all this, it's all a fugazi, right? None of it's actually real. The market can do absolutely anything like we've saw the past few months, right? But it helps us make better educated decisions. But at the end of the day, guys, it all comes down to like your personal preference. Like at the end of the day, like you don't need to look at your Greeks. You don't need to look at technical analysis. All you need is like to see what your cost basis was. If you're like, yo, Apple is at 190, I'm trying to get out of this and go move on with a different opportunity with my money and collect some premiums along the way. You're like, you could just look at the numbers and be like, okay, that's what I want to do. You toss it in a calculator. It's like, okay, I like this. 210. I don't mind selling them at 210. I'm collecting some nice premium here as well. Whether I sell them or not, doesn't matter. The following month I could sell another covered call and collect some more premiums on that, right? And it's, I like to look at covered calls as collecting rent on your shares, right? Like, so like that, again, it's not obviously a technical term or it's not technically rent, but it is. You're kind of making your shares work a little bit harder for you. And guess what the kicker is? And that's why I call it the quad option strategy, is that the quad option strategy also leverages dividend paying stocks and covered calls. So we're collecting the monthly premiums from the covered calls, but then we're also collecting the dividends as well, right? Which is fantastic, right? These are just ways that we're making our money work a little bit harder for us. Now, for me personally, I don't know about you, like besides putting your money in a high yield savings account or T-bills, like I think this is up there in terms of like actually being able to put your money to work for you. Now, obviously, it does require you to be a little bit more active, but not so much, right? Like for example, let's say you did open up this 210, right? You open this up, right? open it up on your phone or desktop, whatever brokerage you're using, you're not doing much for 31 days. Right? You're not really doing much. You're just letting it get to expiration. Now, you don't have to let it get to expiration. You can do something to call closing out your position early. But for the sake of the simplicity of this video, there's nothing wrong by waiting till June 27th, waking up, right? And going to your app and being like, oh, did my shares get sold or not? Oh, they got sold? Okay, cool. Now I'm sitting on, $21,000. Let me go see if I can find another opportunity. I'm gonna get that in a second. Bear with me. But if I didn't sell, let's say they stayed below 210. Okay, well, let's go another month out, sell a call, and we'll do the 210s again and collect more premium. Boom, turn off your phone and go on with your day for a month. There's many people that I talk to do that, and I did that for a long time as well. I didn't care, right? I saw the numbers, right? I looked at my premium. I was like, okay, I'm just going to let it go to expiration. And you're not doing anything. Now, if you want to become more advanced, there is more advanced strategies like rolling, closing out your positions early, right? Kind of staying up to date on news and trends. But for a majority of people, they don't have necessarily time to do that. Not that it takes a tremendous amount of time, but it's like anything in life. You can always take things to another level and to another level. But let's just assume that you woke up in the morning and you're like, whoa, I sold my shares. What do I do now? Well, and let's say you want to get back into Apple. You're like, okay, I sold my shares. I like that. Like, let me kind of do it again, right? So what we can actually do is, let's say we'll just use for the sake of example, we'll go 30 days out. You woke up, you have $21,000 sitting in your account because you're sold your 100 shares that you bought at 190 for 210. What we now do is sell a put. Right? Now, when we sell a put, what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, I'm willing to buy 100 shares of this stock, Apple, right, for a price that I choose, and you're going to pay me a premium upfront for it, right? So for this example, let's say we're seeing Apple, right? It's trading. Let's just assume it's hard to obviously show this example because it's obviously Apple's trading at 198. But bear with me, guys. I think you get the example. Let's say, you know what? If it drops to 185 the following month, we're totally cool buying those shares. Now, for that, we'd collect $262 in premium, right? So right here, let's just toss this into our cash secured put calculator. I'll put 262 here. All the calculators again free in the Facebook group. The link is in the description. And we're locking up $18,500. Okay, full stop. What are you talking about, Pete? Well, we are saying now, hey, if the 31 days rolls around and Apple is trading at 185, we're willing to buy 100 shares of it. Right? Now, obviously, your brokerage is out of your $21,000 from selling your shares is going to lock up $18,500 because it needs to know you're able to buy those shares, or it's going to use your margin, whatever you want to do. Right? So, right, let's say you do that trade. You're like, oh, I woke up, I sold my 21,000, I sold my shares. Now I have, I have another put going. Okay, turn off your phone. Now we come back in 31 days and we open up our screen and we're like, a few things can happen, right? Number one, let's say Apple dropped to 185. It dropped to 180, 170, 150, bankrupt. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore in a month, right? Well, that 185, right? You're buying them at 185, your 100 shares. But let's say it's trading above 185. If it's trading above 185, your contract will expire worthless, meaning that your collateral will be returned back to you. And that collateral is that $18,500. So we're essentially, in this example, we would have collected a 1.42% return on our collateral, right? That's just the premium divided by the collateral that we're getting right here. And there's nothing wrong with selling options and just letting everything go to expiration. Honestly, the longer I think about it, it's honestly the better play for like 99% of people. Now, again, you can close out these positions early, but when you do close out those positions early, you're giving back a little bit of that premium. But again, if you're doing this on stocks that you have high conviction in, you believe in long term, you don't mind if you buy Apple at $185, there's nothing wrong by just letting it get to expiration and seeing what happens. Guys, don't forget, drop a comment down below. I'm going to give you guys my Sunday checklist template that I like to look at every single Sunday to set myself up for success for the trading week. I will personally respond to you with that. Also, if you're somebody that wants a little bit more of a handheld approach, take a look at the first link in the description of today's video. That's a 1-year-long incubator program. As you see with selling options, we are not trading a lot, right? We're trading a handful of times a month. It really depends on what kind of account size that you're working with and the stocks that you select. With that said, I do believe it takes about a year to really master this kind of strategy because, again, we're not trading a lot and you're not getting to see all the different kinds of scenarios that you can actually be put in. So if you're interested interested to work with me and our awesome group of people inside of the incubator, click the first link in the description of today's video. Guys, remember, sell options, collect premiums, repeat. I will see y'all tomorrow.